broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
What a beautiful song.
You're welcome.
Stunning, amazing.
I chose it.
Yes,
Well,
again.
I chose it. You
We did.
re-chose it.
I agreed with your choice.
Welcome, AfterBuzzers. Sorry,
Hey.
guys, I just totally interrupted you. To another Hindsight After Show. If you haven't already done so, please rate, review, subscribe, YouTube, iTunes. We're on SoundCloud now. We also love hearing from you guys on Twitter. All of you guys tweeting at us, giving us comments, reactions. We now have our own hashtag, ABTV Hindsight. We're going to all give our Twitters in a moment so you guys can interact with us. We're going on the live feed at AfterBuzz.com. So if you guys have questions, because we have a very special guest with us tonight, the creator of the show,
Yes.
Emily Fox. Sorry, and I just will address this for those of you watching. I cut my hand on a tuna can last week, so that's why I have to have it raised all the time, so it looks like I have a weird claw.
We're all gonna do that.
Yeah.
Just make you feel,
yeah.
make you feel at home.
Solidarity.
It's got to be like, put a ring on it, put a ring on it already. I'm your host this evening. Thank you, Steven. Sam Davidson. You can find me on Twitter at SamD43. Here are my lovely co-hosts. Introduce yourselves. Tell us where we can find you on Twitter.
At 123 Jackie_B.
Hey, Michael.
Jacque Borowski, by the way.
Oh, okay. Hey.
Announced that.
Michael Andrew, Michael_Drew. That's EAL. They always put AEL. No disrespect to AEL Michaels.
Hey guys, I'm Hannah. You can tweet at me at @thehotshotdude.
That's an amazing.
I know. Every time I say it, everybody's like, "Huh, what? What did she say?" Yep, @thehotshotdude.
And Emily, where can we find you on
I'm
Twitter?
at the Duchess Foxy.
That's
That's
awesome.
up there with Hot
Good
Shot
name.
Dude.
That
See?
is,
Up there
that's
with Hot
really
Shot
good.
Dude. That's
It's more royal. It's more titled.
Yours is slightly more classy than mine.
Well, I am so thrilled. All of us are thrilled to have Emily here. This show, literally, I added it to my Facebook as favorite shows. And that's a really big deal.
That's big.
It's a big deal. Tonight we'll be discussing season 1, episode 6, entitled Tragic Kingdom. This was a bit of a downer, I must say, but you need
Is this
downers.
a reference
It's
to
life.
No Doubt?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
The writer who wrote this episode, Meredith Philpott, gave it a title. Everyone titled their own episode, and I think that was something inspiring for her. And it does, of course, recall No Doubt, but it also has the double meaning.
I had to ask.
Way to holla back, girl.
Yeah.
Well, have all the episodes been references to songs? Because I know next week is the Cranberries, right? So I'm like, is every episode title a reference to
No.
music in some capacity? No.
No.
Okay, I made that up.
There's no.
That sounded good.
We thought about it, but no. Most of the titles are, they're really selected by each writer as something that's meaningful, and you'll see why the Cranberries is called the Cranberries.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Amazing. I'm so excited, and I'm sad there's only 10 episodes, first of all. We only have 4 left. But
true.
tonight, let's start off with talking about Becca and Andy.
Okay.
This is such a complicated relationship that is so hard to tackle just in general, because in her head, they have so much history. In his head, she's just the girl that he's always had a crush on that all of a sudden is like weirdly obsessed with him.
Right.
So he gets in this car accident. We knew he wasn't going to die. I mean, thank God. But
I don't know. I was thought it was gonna be a plot twist.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I
Well,
mean,
then how do you do the whole Team Andy, Team Sean thing if Andy's dead?
maybe they could switch it up.
There's you.
Team Ghost Andy?
Just because it's gone. No, but I think there was, we wanted, obviously, for there to be, the question.
I know.
I
thought there was a potential he might die. Only because I see TV shows nowadays. They're
they're
afraid
very,
to just like willy-nilly kill the person you least expect.
Right.
So I was just like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Well, and there's also that question about time travel, about going back and changing things, that one little change could, I don't know, potentially kill somebody. And that is what Becca is thinking she did. She all of a sudden has been so obsessed with Andy. She wants to be with him. And now she doesn't want to be with him because she went to church in the hospital
chapel.
The hospital chapel, and she said, whatever I need to do to fix this, to have him be okay. And then, next thing we know, he's okay. And she took that as a sign that, like, it's me. Like, I'm a leper.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be together.
She thinks she is his kryptonite. Mm-hmm. She thinks that this is, every time she gets near him, like something bad happens to him, and she keeps, she's still trying to figure out why all of this is happening to her. And I thought, this episode was especially interesting because she does turn to God, as
to a lot of gods.
Yeah, it's like anybody.
She's like, hey guys,
this
I'm
is
like,
a blanket proposal here. Just any of you here.
Which was really
here.
good because you didn't expect that. When the camera turned, I was like, I chuckled out loud.
Right. I was like, you need a joke in a
love
moment
that.
like that because it can't just be like she's here talking to God. It's like, are you there, God? It's me, Becca. Like anybody. So but what I think she's looking for some guidance, and I think the fact of the matter is there is no guidance. There's no one here to tell her what to do. People can make suggestions. Certainly Lolly has been doing that all along. And she's, trying to figure out and she says it in that scene. She says, I want to do the right thing, but I want to follow my heart. How do I do both? And I think in the moment that she hears the doctor say to Andy, you're one of the lucky ones, is when she realizes, I can't do both. I can only do the right thing. Because if I follow my heart, it's too treacherous. It's too dangerous. There's too many unknowns. I'm too afraid of what could happen to other people. And Lolly makes the counter argument. It's like, well, anything could happen to anybody at any time. Like, you can't shut yourself up in a box and never do anything. Yeah. But at the same time, like, you have to make decisions that feel right for you. And in that moment, the decision that feels right for Becca is to push this guy, not push him away, but sort of protect him from her.
That has to be so confusing for Becca, though. And that's what I was thinking when I was watching it today, because after she said that, she wants to make the right decision, but if you go back in time and it's all on you, like you're the only one who went back in time. She didn't go back with anyone else. So of course, the whole world revolves around you. Like, you have to think that.
Exactly.
So I mean, if you're not there to be selfish, what are you there for?
Right.
I mean, I would, that's what I was, she wants to do the right thing, but there has to be a piece of us like, if I didn't come here to be selfish, then what am I here for?
I don't think it's entirely selfish, though, because there are some instances where she realizes she's changed history. I forgot the character's name, but the girl who didn't meet her husband.
Oh, yeah.
Cousin Phoebe.
Yeah, Cousin Phoebe.
Yeah.
When she didn't meet her husband, she was like, no, I have to make this happen. So I don't think it's, I think we see it a certain way because she's the only time traveler, but at the same time, I don't think she's not altruistic.
Yeah, and I think she thinks she's a lot more powerful than she really might be. She's just one girl, and, she was sent back for a reason, and she wanted to change things, and so it kind of sucks that now that Andy got hurt, she's like, well, now I'm not going to change things. Now, like, what is she going to do?
Well, she's still, everything she does changes things.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think she's both feeling, she's got this power and the knowledge that she has, and that's power, but it's also sort of crippling for her. She's also really powerless.
Yeah.
Because now, the further and further she gets from that sort of moment of impact, the more choices she makes that are different, even from the little micro decisions to the bigger ones, like quitting her job or calling off her wedding. Like, now everything's changed. She's in this total uncharted territory. And I think she's, in a way, it's sort of a metaphor for anybody growing up and saying, well, like, I just don't know what's going to happen next. So I don't know what to do. I'm paralyzed because I'm so afraid that, like, I could get hurt, someone else could get hurt, someone in my family could get hurt, or, like, I could just screw this up, Forget about getting hurt. That's right. An extreme, but there's also, like, all these little decisions where you're like, I could be wrong. But, like, that's kind of life. Like, everyone kind of wakes up every day and says, I'm going to do, like, 10 wrong things today.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just, like, and they're, anyway, yeah,
I think one of the reasons I actually find this show very, like, refreshingly relatable, because in so many shows you have these characters making these, like, decisions that they're like, they make these bold decisions that they're like, I have to do this thing because it's right for me and I changed my life now. But even when she goes back in time and she's like, I have to go back and make the right decision, she still doesn't know what the right decision is. And you're like, that is so human, because that's how everybody feels. Everybody, especially in an age where there's so many choices to have. I think everybody feels that way, like, what if I date this person or that person or have this job or that job? How will it affect my life, and will I made the right or wrong decision? And maybe it's not that there are right or wrong decisions.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome, like, watching it, going back in time. It gives her that opportunity when you were talking about, like, her being selfish or whatnot. It allows her to be selfish in a liberating way for herself, that she can go back and know what can find her in her 20 years from now. Yeah. But she can go back and be like, I can liberate myself from all of these things that I know later on I was only suppressed by. But then with everybody else, it allows her to be so selfless, and she helps them to find their right path to some degree. It honestly actually intrigues me with her relationship with Sean, because knowing that the path that they go down, I think there's like a wonderful opportunity for her to help him with his artistry and that relationship to grow.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. And that's so interesting, because like now, again, it's like, you know, I mean, she's 10 steps beyond now, where she called off her wedding to Sean. Sean is now a different person, you know. He's not the guy that married that girl. Yeah. You know, it's only been, you know, a couple of weeks, a couple months, but it's still like, this guy's different now. Yeah. Like, everything's kind of different. And that's both kind of, it's terrifying, it's thrilling. It's, you know, I know that if I like went back 20 years and revisited decision, I would be so freaked out. Like, completely, I'd be like, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I only know one thing, that thing that worked.
Yeah, so and then it might not work again.
I'd freak out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane. And now, you know, Becca kind of made this decision, like, Andy, this is my guy. Now, it's not her guy. We'll get into that. But I also want to get into Becca and Melanie. Super interesting relationship.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not Melanie's biggest fan. She's kind of, I mean, it's not her fault, though. It's not her fault. It's the position that she's in.
He's trying to steal her. She's trying to steal her man. I mean, that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah. Right. I mean, from her point of view, Becca sucks.
Yeah.
And we love Becca, so, you know, we're like, go away, Melanie.
Yeah.
But what did you know, when creating the character, I thought, because, you know, I think it was first episode when she goes, fire that temp, she's gonna suck.
Yeah, that was, well, that temp that she was talking about was actually not
Melanie. Wasn't Melanie?
Yeah, no, what Melanie is also a temp. She's like a floater on in the like office. The temp that she had hired was supposed to just cover her desk during her honeymoon, which she then doesn't take.
I'm so glad.
No. And that's like one of those things where like I was watching it, and I was like, you know, if only there were a way to go back in time and just explain that. But you know, when you're running out on your wedding and you're yelling at your boss, you're not really going to get into it. Like, I don't mean Melanie, I mean the other temp, but it's still like no. So Melanie works at the office, and Melanie's like a floater, and first of all, I must go on record to say I love Melanie. Yes. Like, Melanie, to me, is so misunderstood. Like, and this is in part because I love the actress who plays her so much. Jessie Hodges is magnificent. And a lot of what Melanie became was Jessie's interpretation of Melanie. Like, Melanie was really just supposed to be, like, a little bridge and tunnel, a little, like, you know, like, looking to Becca as, like, you know, I want to be you. And then the minute Becca starts making those, like, eyeballs at her man, she's like, I want to kill you.
Yeah.
And, like, that's sort of been sort of the interesting evolution of Melanie, is watching her, like, inner, like, come out, where it's like, oh, wait, no. Like, this is my territory. This is my man. Like, don't do that. And so she's, you know, every time everyone's like, oh, Melanie. I'm like, oh, no, Melanie is like, she is trying to protect what rightfully belongs to her.
Yeah. I mean, it does, but at the same, it's a frenemy relationship, because it does seem, you know, she's looked up to Becca. Becca is kind of, you know, she got in her job, and she introduced Andy and Melanie as well. So
she did that.
Yeah, she just likes her, but she hates her. And tonight in this episode, she was just like, please don't be nice.
Right.
Yeah, I like that part.
It was interesting. They really saw, this was the first chance for both of them to see the other one's humanity. Yeah. And, you know, I think, too, in episode 4, where Becca and Andy are at the Halloween party and Melanie kind of bursts in and confronts them, you know, that's also, I've said, too, that's that's sort of what wakes Becca up at that moment to say, like, oh, this is bigger than just me and Andy and whether or not we're meant to be together. There's someone else in this triangle who really should be considered.
Yeah.
You know, this is a person. Like,
It makes every decision hard. Like, after when this episode was finished, I just looked at Becca like, man, like literally there's no right way to go.
No.
Literally, it's like, well, if I do this, it ruins everyone's life.
Right.
Except for Sean.
I think what Becca's starting to realize, though, is kind of like the point you brought up earlier, where the world isn't just hers. It's not like all these people are disposable and at her like beck and call. I mean, even this decision she makes at the end of the episode to go back to Sean, it's like, well, then that has consequences because he missed Paige's
her
play.
play. Yeah.
But this is the only thing I have with that. How is it not hers? She went back in time. The whole world kind of does revolve around her. Like, if you wake up one day like, oh, I'm in the past, it must be me.
Yeah.
It's all me. So it's like, I don't know.
And
she certainly is. Well, it's fun because she's really, you know, she is our point of view. Obviously, she's she lets us kind of see the '90s through like the lens of today. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a huge part of her struggle is, am I like the puppet master up here with these marionette strings, but yet I feel this profound sense of responsibility to my marionette. It's like, I can't just say like, oh, well, I'm a time traveler. Obviously, like I'm special, I'm unique, I'm different. I've been removed from the space-time continuum. That seems, fairly remarkable. I'm going to change my life and change everybody's life, because it would be a shame to waste this opportunity. But then on the other hand, she is this very, like, she has a really, I think, a fairly, like, strong, like, moral center. And she's very, like, keenly aware of the consequences. She's not like a cartoon character who's like, oh, out of my way, I'm a time traveler. Like, she understands there are other, like hearts and minds and feelings and ambitions and goals and whatever. Like, all these other people have other things to do and places to be.
Yeah.
And, she's disrupting them knowing that she's changing things.
Well, and from Melanie's point of view, I mean, Becca seems like a total, itch with me.
Bad person.
And I mean, think about it. And because at the end of the episode, Melanie comes up to her door and what does she say? She says, like, who do you think you are? How dare you? Basically, is what she says to her.
She was mad.
Oh, she was, and she had
she
had every right to be. I would be livid when she finds out that he wasn't on the turnpike. And A, she's been sitting in guilt for days.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And B, I mean, it's what she was fearing was happening all along.
Right.
And Becca totally deserved it. Like, she did.
And Becca says that. She says, don't blame him. Like, this is all my fault. Like, please be mad at me. Like, this is totally justifiable. I mean, I don't think she wants Melanie to, like, stick around, keep yelling, but it's like it's almost like it's baptism by fire. It's like, yes, please, like, somebody yell at me, somebody get mad, someone lay down a boundary.
Make her feel better.
Yeah, it's sort of like, good, yes, I need someone to rein me in here because I am completely out of control.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about Andy following this episode? Do you guys still look at him like, poor Andy? Tough.
Yeah.
Do you still feel that way?
I think I don't feel like poor Andy, but I feel more like Andy. I had held up Andy on this pedestal of, like, there are a lot of shows that have these, like, lovable, genuine nerd characters. Like, you think of the Leonard character on Big Bang Theory, where it's like they can do no wrong. Like, everything they do is because they're a nerd. It means that, like, they have all these other super qualities that make them flawless, aside from just being a nerd, And so here we see Andy as a person. He's not just like a superhero nerd character, but he makes poor decisions too, just like everybody else.
Yeah, I feel he's a little more tainted to me now. I mean, he's got more of a well-rounded character now because of what happened, but he was going to go cheat on his girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, that was the goal until his car flipped. That was his. So now he's a little more tainted to me now.
Well, I mean, it makes him more complex, Yeah. You wouldn't look at that guy. You think this is the guy in the Land's End rugby shirt who's never going to step out of line ever. And, like, what's so interesting is that, like, for all of Andy's life in the original timeline, he sort of was that guy. You know, that's the guy she was about to marry. Was like that guy in the grown-up version of that guy in the rugby shirt. Was someone who'd never stepped out of line, and that was what both drew her to him and also made her sort of like a little bored. And you know, but now Andy's kind of been presented with a challenge. You know, like a real. I mean, he's floundering. You know, he doesn't know what to do, and there's nowhere to turn. Who can he ask?
Yeah. True.
And can we say with confidence that Melanie broke up with him?
No.
No. Because at the end, well, he puts her picture down. She yells at Becca.
And she's packing her bag.
And she's like, you both are, she calls him crazy. Or so, I forget which the word she says. But she's like, you and Andy are just, you know.
Morally bankrupt.
Yeah, you're morally bankrupt. So I would assume that she wouldn't want to be with someone that's morally bankrupt. If she really believes that. What do you think, Becca?
I actually felt Becca. You were thinking it in your mind.
I know.
But
You look like her.
Stop.
I know. Sorry. I was like literally just like Becca. I'm like, I'm sorry,
tell me
she's
more.
time traveled. No, I actually see the actual Becca right here. She's time traveled, and I would like to ask her a question. So Becca, no, I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good. But actually, by the end of this, thank you. By the end of this episode, I actually had a little bit more respect for Andy because he was able to, you know, admit what he had done to Melanie, not proudly or anything, but just humbly admitted what he had done and recognized that he should, at this point in his life, he wants to be with somebody who is reliable and cares for him and that he cares for. And yes, it's not some like beautiful, intense romance that he's always wanted his whole life, but he's just recognizing how much he should be appreciating Melanie and what she does for him. And I think it kind of opens up the door by Becca stepping back. It opens up the door to the possibility that she may not end up with Andy because they had their chance now early on in time, that it kind of takes away from that 20 years from now, he finally got her because now he's already had her when those 20 years come.
That's such a good point.
Right.
Is that what you
Becca.
were thinking?
Yeah. Thanks, Becca.
No problem, guys.
I know.
Yeah,
That's your new name.
It's a very fair point. Again, it's another one of those like chess pieces that got moved in a different direction, and now the whole board looks different. You know, now it's Becca's kind of, you know, she does say at one point in the episode at the kind of towards the end when they're both, she and Lolly are sitting on the couch and they're like completely exhausted and wrecked from everything that's happened, and she's like, I'm just gonna sit on this couch for the next 20 years, and then I'm going to marry Andy. And that's just how it's, you know, it's like she's just like, I'm done. I'm broken. Like, it's broken me. But yeah, I mean, the fact is now their whole history has changed. You know, the whole point in the original timeline was that they'd kind of found each other again when they were like at like the tail end of their 30s and both single and kind of both like coming out of really like, in some ways, like sort of devastating breakups, and you know, in that way that people kind of find each other and they're like, okay, we're good friends, let's just get married and like just do this thing.
I mean, do you think that could say, not to get into predictions, but like their relationship, present day pilot episode, if she weren't to have gone back in time, they were to have gotten married, like would they not have worked either? If they, you know,
I will just not answer that right now.
Okay, well that's
yeah,
fair enough.
It's no. It's there's, you should see our writer's room looks like a beautiful mind. It's like there's all these like post-its and like pebbles to find your way back, and it's but there are all these sort of alternate timelines, all of which have been worked out, and it makes it it's like a mind bender, but at the same time it's so helpful to us to know sort of like, well, this is what would have happened. This is what is happening now. And this is what might happen next.
Right, you have to do like a Venn diagram.
It's like
of what
multiverses.
could possibly overlap.
I have a question about the timeline. I read somewhere that the timeline, we're not going to see the present again. Can you confirm that or no?
I cannot.
Okay, well, great time to start talking about Lolly then. I love Lolly, by the way. She's just such an amazing, fun character, and, you know, we still aren't completely sure what happened between her and Becca. I mean, she kind of, like, but not, we don't really know at all.
We don't know yet.
And that is very much about Lolly and Jamie, I think.
Yes.
And this episode, Lolly proves how fickle.
And wishy-washy.
It seems actually, I just looked over. She was like, no. I'm like, okay, maybe
See,
not.
I feel like I feel like fickle is a poor word for Lolly because we have to remember that she just came out of, like, she's like, what, 22 or 23?
23.
Yeah, and when I was 23, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know who I wanted to date, and sometimes that is hard. Where she's like, I really like this person, but I don't know if this is the right person for me, and he's doing some kind of bad things, but like he's
in college.
Yeah. So think about how confused you were at 23, right? Just a normal person, and your best friend is not a time traveler. So like, this is add to that. Lolly, who's already, she's flaky, but she's not
a bad person.
She's not a bad person, and she's not afraid of commitment necessarily. But so her friend has now come back and said, so you had this relationship with my brother that was his undoing, that was a disaster. And I have seen it, and I saw it happen, and I was there when he had to get his stomach pumped and all this other stuff. So like, it's not purely that Lolly is fickle or that Lolly is unsure about Jamie in the way that a normal 23-year-old is unsure about their boyfriend, which everybody is. It's like, in addition to that, she's fearful of like, am I this guy's kryptonite? Like, am I gonna, if I'm with him and I am so attracted to him and I want to be with him like badly, but at the same time, I am so scared of what could happen. And she's trying to silence that, and she's trying to say like, okay, if I know, then I'll just undo it, right? I'll just make that not happen. But then she's like, she sees the signs, and everything's a sign. You know, he shows up to the Halloween party and he's like pinpoint pupils and he's like all, and she's like, oh, great, this is the thing.
Could that be why she calls Kevin so quickly to try and move on from?
That is definitely part of it. She's sort of trying to. She is sort of like a little bit. She's hamstrung because she feels like she now has this information too. And so she's trying to sort of like adjust her own future in a way that maybe takes her down a different path.
So, because I feel that this episode, it was a little bit harsh for her to break up with Jamie. It came out of nowhere. Like, yeah, she met this other guy. She knows about she re-met the other guy, knows about what's going to happen in the future, has been weary since Halloween. But it just kind of seemed like, I think I'm going to break up with Jamie. Like, what?
Yeah.
You committed to him, and for her to do that after Becca told her what happened, it's like she had a chance then to back out of the relationship. She didn't, and she continued it, and now she's like, what happened? What, did it just all sink in for her?
I think it did. Getting out of town and going down to Chapel Hill, seeing her dad, I think like just, in that way that you get a little perspective when you get some air between you and the person, and like, when your misgivings start to, they get louder than your impulse to be with someone, then and you're 23, and we all, I remember it as like, we were pinballs, like we just couldn't, you couldn't settle down anywhere. It was like you were so afraid, and like it was so, I don't know, it was pretty easy to get in and out of stuff.
Yeah.
Not easy, but like, it was a done thing.
But there is such pressure on this relationship.
Yeah.
And it's too much.
And I think she couldn't take it.
Yeah. And it's, to be honest, her feelings were so strong for Jamie from the beginning that she was like, no, I don't want to back away from this, even the information she was given. But then she just got scared and...
Right. Well, at first, I think she was sort of tantalized by it, where she was like, ooh.
Well, and it's like that whole thing where you're
story.
like, this is my brother, or my best friend's brother. Like, come on, there's a level of interest there that goes beyond just him being Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you're sneaking around. Like, that's kind of, there's a certain thrill to that. And, I think part of it was hiding it from Becca was kind of the fun part. And then when it's sort of exposed to the light of day, a lot of things sort of wilt.
Yeah.
And
she could have continued it, and she chose not to, which is good because, we don't even know the timeline as to when he tried to kill himself or he just overdrank. Or, do we know, did he try to kill himself or did he just drink too much?
Nah, he took too many pills. He was like, no, I don't think it was, I think it was, as many of these things are, like a cry for help. But, we know in the future he didn't kill himself. So he he kept hitting rock bottom.
Here's a quick side question. Jamie and Lolly didn't seem to know each other that well, and for friends that are so close, it's like, when did Becca and Lolly meet? that it didn't really overlap with like her getting to know Jamie.
College.
So
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I assumed in college because I was like in high school, like they would have
if
known
you're a
each
high
other.
school friend, you know your friend's brother.
Exactly.
College friend,
Yeah.
you might not know your friend's brother that well.
Yeah.
And I think she like knew him. Like they probably had like, I don't know, like Thanksgiving, whatever. Like they sort of have met.
Yeah.
And they might have hung out a couple times, but like I don't think they like. She didn't know him the way you know your like best friend from across the street. You see their brother every day of your life.
Right.
But like this was sort of like, oh look, you have a and like
Touchy
probably when
brother.
she met him, which was whatever, he's like 21 now and they're 23. So she probably met him when he was like 15 and like sort of gawky and pimply and like didn't take notice. And he's one of those guys, a bit of a late bloomer.
Mm-hmm.
So like then you're like, oh. Look at your cute brother. And she like, the time she hooked up with him was after Becca and Sean's rehearsal dinner for their would-be wedding.
Right.
Which is like, rehearsal dinners are like, bets are off.
What happens there stays there.
They
or
just
not.
stay there, mostly.
Let's talk about Paige and Sean. This doesn't involve Becca, which is like one of the only storylines, but that it does eventually involve Becca. I like Paige a lot as a character. I think she's an amazing addition to the show.
I feel terrible because I feel that life kind of like pooped on her. Like, it's like she gets all of these, like, well, we discovered in the last episode that she had to like emancipate herself from her parents, and then the times that she's genuinely like falling for Sean but trying to be like a little protective of herself because of Becca. It's like Becca can just come in and swoop it and take it all away, and you're like, no, that's not fair.
Yeah,
but
it's not. It's not particularly fair.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, but at the same time, it's realistic and it's human and
Right.
it happens all the time.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's sort of like, in that sense, what's so interesting about Paige to us is that Becca's never met her before. She is a completely blank slate for her in terms of like, everyone else in sort of her immediate orbit is someone that she knows their whole life, and she sort of knows their future or what is now sort of a kind of, fading version of their future. But Paige is like, I don't know, I never laid eyes on this girl before in my life. I don't know anything about her. And that kind of makes it fun and sort of this like, like a little bit of an open road in terms of their friendship. But like Paige definitely is getting caught in the crosshairs here because, Sean is like kind of struggling. He's like trying to move on because that's what you got to move on, right? But, and he didn't know at first that she was in any way connected to Becca. But in that way that, groups of friends tend to overlap. So yeah, I think Paige and Sean's relationship has these built-in obstacles, which is that his heart isn't yet completely free, and Paige is so guarded, and so in her own way, like scared of being vulnerable and scared of opening up, and like she really likes this guy, but at the same time, like she doesn't have that setting, like it doesn't come like from like the factory with her, like she is always like
on guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does very much seem like she came into the situation for a reason. That's what I think. I mean, do you guys think that, or you think
Yeah,
she's
I
just a
do.
random chick that was like came into this time travel situation and is just gonna get?
Well, I
pooped
mean,
on?
everything seems like it's part of the part of the new world now. It seems like she's like, I agree with that. I was gonna say that Sean, this guy Sean, everything just works out for this guy. Everything just works out for this guy.
the accent.
Yeah, that too. I call him the Seeker because he used to be on this other
Although
show.
He's on The Seeker.
We
Yeah.
do
Legend
know
of the
though
Seeker.
that in his future, like his art business kind of doesn't work out. So it's like it may seem like that now, but we know that his future is like, or his future that was his future at the time was
He's-
not very bright.
He's single again. He still gets to go on the honeymoon. He, he probably hooked up with somebody.
I hope so.
He's still. He comes back. He's got the flowing, pulled back hair, which I've tried to have because I got an afro and it didn't work.
Right.
So he's got a 6-pack, and now he's talking to an actress. Like meanwhile, everyone around him, who you would think good things would be happening to, like Andy,
Right.
the two people that you thought that she would come back to actually help, everything is going crappy for them. But Sean is just.
Well,
He's hurting though.
I feel like okay, but this is me obviously clearly already choosing a team.
Okay.
But I just feel like Sean is going to end up being in game for her, and I feel like things are working out for him because they need to for him to be ready for her later down the line. Like, I feel like Paige is a very important character to come into the story for him and for Becca's sake, because I think her being a fellow artist, which is, like, toxic for an actual relationship, like, two artists together, everybody knows, that's just good luck. But anyways, but for the sake of helping inspire and progress each other's careers, I think that will occur in that relationship, and then he will have created something with his artistry, and Becca will find him at a point when he is stable.
So your team, Sean.
Yeah.
So was it the six pack? Was the six pack in the head, the ponytail? Was
He
it
had
that?
me at the accent.
The accent. He came into audition and like he actually auditioned with his like an American accent.
Yeah.
But he came in and introduced himself with his, you know, in his native accent. And we're all like, and
So that wasn't planned. To have
no,
him be
it was
Australian?
like, so he walks out of he reads it in, you know, an American accent. He walks out and I can see him in the parking lot. And I was like, can we bring him back right now, right this second? Because like I heard, and I was like, you know, it would be so easy to I can rewrite this character as Australian like that, right? Dude, he's Australian. Australian. So like he read that part really angry. And I thought that was so interesting because when you meet him, he does have this angry streak. But what's so interesting about his interactions with Becca through the course of this season, and I don't want to give anything away, but it's like he's sort of the one person in her life where she's actually sort of like, in the macro sense, done him this huge favor, right?
Yeah.
By not marrying him. It's like she doesn't marry him. So he meets this other girl. And whether or not that kind of progresses, it's still different. And it's still this powerful interaction that he has with another artist, someone who's really committed to what they're doing, who understands him on this level of like, I am also an artist. I get it. I see how your brain works. You know, whether we are destined to be together or not, it's like he has this like kind of very meaningful, like, you know, sort of connection with her. And then from there, kind of like, his path is totally different and he does become a different person.
Yeah.
And, you know, of all the people in her life, you know, Becca sort of tried the least to like help him, and yet offered him the most help. So that's the irony of their situation, is that like she has, you know, and this is what I keep saying, it's like not all of these bad decisions are actually bad decisions, and something that seems rash or something that seems heartless or something that seems like, you know, whatever it is, self-serving, it's like it's not in the way that it plays out, but you can't see that yet. And that's sort of what makes it all so interesting to like plan out in that beautiful mind kind of way.
The map.
I
Right,
just
the map.
got the chills.
Did you get to the
I
chills?
I did. It happens a lot sometimes when I talk about the show. And I'm like, oh my God. Let's talk about Sean and Becca even more and what she decides to do at the end of the episode, which I was like, are you serious? Really?
Yeah, that kind of threw me off too.
This is what you're going to choose to do. So, you know, Sean's about to go to Paige's play. And as he's walking out the door, you know, Becca is there and basically says she says she wants to get back together and have things be like the way they were before. I'm like, what? You were just at Andy's bedside. Is this a rebound of a rebound?
She's throwing everyone for a tizzy.
That's, I mean, again, like this is Becca casting around for an answer. Where it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I am a wrecking ball. Like, I feel not just like I am not safe, but the people around me are not safe. And like the only thing she can think of to do is to kind of set everything back to where it was. Where she starts to think like the decision that I made that was wrong was the first decision that I made, which was to run out of that wedding. And like, I think, and look, by the way, I'm not saying this is like a good decision or a wise decision or a decision that's going to like play out the way she thinks it's going to, but it's still like in this moment, she's trying to course correct and saying like, okay, if I just put everything back the way it was, let me just get oriented once more, because I am flying blind here. Like, I don't know where I am. I don't know I've got this one in the hospital. I got this one coming to my door yelling at me. Like, I don't know. It's like I'm like my hair's standing on end. I'm so scared. And I think for her, kind of going back, you know, in the way that you retrace your steps, where you're like, I took a left turn back at whatever that road was, and now I'm completely lost. So I'm gonna walk backwards till I get back to where I took that turn, and I'm gonna go the way I was planning to go. And I think that's what takes her back to Sean. Also, the fact that like she's had now enough time to think like, God, look what I've done. Look what I did. Like I didn't even like talk to him. I ran out of that wedding, and then we had like one conversation. Like that was, and it's sort of like in that way that sometimes you don't realize what you've done until you get a little distance, and then you kind of stop yourself and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, oh God. And it's sort of like in that sense that it's like never too late to kind of go back and adjust something. That's sort of what she's learning is like, I might not get this opportunity to like go back in time again, but like I do have an opportunity to correct this right now. And that's, I think, what takes her back to Sean's door.
Do we think it's just a fear of, I mean, she clearly still has always had feelings for him.
She loves him.
She loves him. So it's easy to kind of pick up where they left off. But at the same time, it kind of seems like what drove her back to him was Andy getting hurt.
That was part of it. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of it. I mean, that's kind of front and center, but that's not, I mean, I think it's everything. It's sort of the collective, sort of pile on of like, oh my God, I'm out here. I'm in this like ship. I don't have any like oars. I'm going to go back.
Yeah.
I need oars.
Well, I guess we'll see where that happens. Let's kind of end and ask, we have some time for questions for us because I know we have a lot.
What about the angel?
That's what I'm about to get to,
Okay,
is Xavier. That's my first question.
Sorry,
and that's where we're going to wrap up. I'm just kidding. Here's my
I was
claw.
so anxious.
Is this her guardian angel? He seems to not realize that he has a seer time travel companion. Like, what can you tell us all what's going on?
I can't tell you too much about Xavier, except to say that the mystery is sort of what defines him and what makes him sort of interesting to us and sort of in the broad scope of storytelling. I will tell you that the Xavier is not a guardian angel.
Okay.
Xavier may or may not possess some wisdom about what she's going through, but he's sort of not there to tell her what to do. He's sort of there to listen. And I think in that way that I think everyone kind of needs a sounding board in their life, what's nice about him is he's completely, at least seemingly, disconnected from her life entirely. He has no skin in this game. It's like, well, tell me what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then, sometimes you get advice that you don't realize is advice. Like, you have to interpret it. No one just gives it to you. No one's going to say, well, you should do this and this and that. I mean, here's your grocery list.
Right.
That's sort of not his purpose.
What? Yeah, I want to know his purpose.
I like how one moment it looks like he's in on it, and then the next moment he's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
You have a good day? You have a good
Right.
day?
And that's sort of,
guessing,
that's, and I want everyone to keep, we want everyone to keep
Like,
guessing.
does he know? And it looks like she's going through that too. She's like, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can we wink at each other?
Yeah.
No. And he's like not winking back. But there is a grand design with that character that I am excited for you to find out.
I thought he was her doc, her flux capacitor. He was her something.
Something.
I
thought that in the beginning.
Of course.
Yeah. There it is.
He's the one.
He's an important chess piece.
He is an important chess piece.
Yes. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Let's ask a few questions.
Okay.
Let's start with you, Hannah. Do you have any questions for Miss Emily Fox?
How much time do you get to spend on set and be hands-on with these characters and help them like understand what you were thinking when you were writing the scripts?
Oh, we got to be on set a lot, which was really fun. Yeah, we shot the show in Atlanta, which is surprisingly close to here. Like, yeah, because you don't. Okay, so here's us, right? And Atlanta is like straight across, and it's not on the coast. So you don't go up the way you do to New York. You don't go down the way you do to Miami. It's like, it's 3 hours. Like, it's super, it's like close. It's kind of a nice little commute. I and our other EP, John Norris, got to be on the set basically the whole time. We sort of tag team. We were there together, and then we got to, like, I came back and he was there, and then he came back and I was there, and like we sort of got to, and then we had other two writers, Mike Harrow and Dave Strauss, who were also on the set, and then all the other writers got to come visit for their episodes, and Len Rosenfeld was there for 5, and Meredith Philpott was there for 6, and Lenny Kenny Nybart was there for 7, and it's so fun to be on the set.
Yeah,
like as a writer, you're
awesome.
sitting in a room and you're like, it's all so abstract and post-its on the wall, and then you see it actually happening. There's a huge thrill in that.
Yeah.
I love being on the set. Like, it does not get old. Plus, there's always like snacks. Fun. It's really fun. Plus,
Yeah,
like
free
you get, it's
coffee.
like fun to. It's like, I'm not gonna lie, like it's kind of fun to be the boss.
Yeah, I'm
Is
sure
it
it
You're
is.
just like,
Is it really cool for you all to hear the way the actors interpret what you may have written and how they view the situations and characters and be like, I don't know.
yeah. Well, they all brought so much to it. They all really interpreted it, and they all kind of had their own take on each character. And they didn't. They were pretty faithful to the script. But a lot of what's nice about having writers on set is they could come to us and say, like, I'm not quite sure I understand this scene, or like, how do you feel about changing this? And like, it was very collaborative in that sense. I mean, they weren't
really
like
cool.
completely willy-nilly like improvising and whatever. I mean, sometimes, but like then they kind of had a chance really. And once we got to know the actors, because we wrote all the scripts before we even started shooting, and a lot of our
wow.
casting was sort of a little bit late, and not super late, but like some of the parts we cast just as we were beginning to shoot. So a lot of the actors were kind of meeting them and being like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. Like, action, like, go, so, but they all brought something really different. It's, but, because it's in your head, it's something. And then you meet the actor and you're like, oh, like I hadn't pictured Becca as a blonde.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I'm not a blonde.
Yeah.
I was, I figured, but otherwise she looks just like.
Well, I'd like to get into you.
We
in the
all
show.
look like Becca.
I know, except for me.
Me too.
Yeah, you too.
I don't look like Becca.
the most.
So one last quick question for me is this a personal, like, did you wish you could like travel? I mean, I wish I could just travel back in time in general. Like, is this, a very specific, like, how did this idea come up? It's so brilliant, and the music integration with VH1, like, was this all planned far in
I
advance?
have a question that goes into your question, and so not to like throw too much at you, but I heard it was shot somewhere else before VH1, and I'm curious about the music being a part of it initially or not.
Yeah, no, initially it was really about this character. It was not about the 90s. It was not about this time period. It was not even supposed to really be set in the 90s. It was actually originally, the time jump was from 2009 to 1999. And that was when it was set up at a different network. And that was just a very different show. And I mean, not very different. It was actually virtually the same script, but we just moved it around a bit. Because it's one thing to write a pilot and it's another to create a series. Because like with a pilot, you're just trying to come up with an interesting premise. You're just trying to make a huge mess, and which you promise to clean up in the series. You're like, well, one by one, I'm going to put all these puzzle pieces back together. But so initially, it was really just about the notion of this character getting to go back and rethink these big decisions in her life, and how that's such a universal fantasy, and how everybody kind of sort of wants to do that, even if you're really happy in your life. Like I would go back to the college just to do it again, just to like, I wouldn't change I don't think here's what I would change. There's a couple classes I wouldn't take, but like I just to like the joy of that, like just to be like, oh, I'm in college.
Yeah.
I'm 19. Like it's amazing. But like the truth is, like I think the the fantasy was where it started, and then VH1 bought the script. Optioned the script and then bought the script. We redeveloped it and kind of, refocused it a little bit so that it was set in the 90s. And the music thing, I mean, honest to God, that didn't even really factor into it until we were cutting the pilot together and sort of saying like, oh my God, you know what we need? Oh, you know what we need here? Oh, do you know what we need here? Oh, let's just look through my iTunes library and get all these songs. So like, then it became like, oh yeah, there is a huge opportunity here. For like, I mean, I think we always thought it like in the back of our heads, but then when you actually get to like lay in these tracks, and you're like, I love that song.
This is so perfect for VH1,
It's so
and it's
Yeah,
bringing
it
it
was.
back, the 90s. Sadly, this is all the time we have for tonight. I could sit with you all freaking night and ask you so many questions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please, again, follow us on Twitter, and we will see you guys next week.
Rate us on iTunes.
And yes, of course, iTunes.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.